So, welcome to National 4 or National 5 Geography. So, today we're going to look at the transport problems and solutions of Glasgow. Now, we've been studying Glasgow for a little while. We've looked at the housing problems, so now it's going to look at transport problems. So, what is Glasgow like? I should not about myself. So, Glasgow, biggest city in Scotland, huge amount of people travel from Glasgow to work, and a huge amount of people travel to Glasgow for work. So, like most other developed cities, it struggles with the amount of cars and the amount of car ownership, and it's had to adapt numerous times over the years. So one of the biggest problems that Glasgow faces that you can see in the picture is traffic congestion. Now, if you've ever travelled to Glasgow, either kind of earlyish in the morning, between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning, or between kind of 4 and 6, you don't go very fast and you're stuck in kind of traffic like you see in that picture. So we're going to look at why that happens and what can be done to make it much better. So, basically, the traffic congestion has happened because we now own more cars than we ever have done before. So, kind of in 1991, Glasgow residents owned about 107,000 cars. Now that had increased massively to about 160,000 cars by 2005. We're another 15 years down the line, so that number's just going to increase more and more. In fact, some households will have more than one car per household. If you think the kind of mother, father, and if there's any kids over the age of kind of 17, there could be potentially 3 cars for each household, all have to travel for work or something. And it is much more convenient than using public transport, so people are more likely to do it, particularly as we get into the colder winter months. It's much easier to jump in your car than walk to the bus stop or the train station. So, commuters are a big problem. So, people who arrive in the city early in the morning to work and leave at night are commuters. They work in Glasgow, but they live elsewhere. For example, like Livingston. So, what can you imagine happens at these times? Everybody entering the city at the same time and everybody leaving the city at the same time. Another problem that Glasgow has is it has very kind of few bridging points. So the River Clyde runs right through the middle of Glasgow, and to get from one side to the city to the other, you have to cross the river. But there isn't a lot of bridges, so a lot of people will use the same bridge. And an example is the Kingston Bridge has to deal with over 170,000 vehicles every day because it's kind of part of the motorway. If you imagine a bottle, and you could have a huge 2-litre bottle of juice, and as all the water flows out of it, it kind of narrows in towards the kind of cap and then comes out. Same thing happens with a bridge. If everybody's travelling, they have to turn in towards the bridge, and if you've got 3 and 4 cars going towards the bridge at the same time, they'll have to slow down, and that creates a build-up of traffic, and it's called bottlenecking. So few bridging points causes an issue called bottlenecking. Now, Glasgow's a really, really old city. The streets and the street pattern was designed in the Victorian era, so they were not designed for cars. Now, the streets are quite narrow, and people actually park their cars on the side of the road, so it makes it even more narrow, so that you need to kind of come into the middle of the road to get by. So you imagine in this picture that these cars could be parked, and these cars could be parked. So you can only use the 2 lanes in the middle, and if you're here, you need to drive into the middle again, starting that bit of a bottleneck process and kind of causing more traffic and traffic jams. So, you have a task like this in your OneNote. What I want you to do is, what problems are caused in Glasgow from increased traffic? What can you think of? So things like traffic congestion, what does that cause? Are people always very, very calm when they're stuck in traffic? What about thinking about things like the environment? What does increased traffic do for that? So there is 7 points here. I would like you to at least get 4 of what problems are caused by increased traffic. And what that'll do is, and we'll save this for the end, that will allow you to answer this first part of this question. So this is an assessment style question. It's describe the problems of transport in an urban area in a developed country, and developed country is Scotland, and this kind of urban area we've chosen is Glasgow. Alright, so we want to write 6 things about the problems that transport has caused. So, what solutions do we have to this? Now, during the 1670s, the M8, which is Scotland's busiest motorway, was kind of built into 3 lanes, particularly going through Glasgow. Now, in the past, kind of recent years, it's actually been upgraded to a 3-lane motorway for a much larger stretch, which is a huge positive distance on the time it takes to get in and out of Glasgow at peak times. So it is Scotland's busiest motorway, so although it's been developed, there is still other things that we need to do to try and reduce the traffic problems. So what's going to happen is I'm going to give you solutions, and we'll go through each in detail. What I want you to do is I want you to add to it on your OneNote. So there's park and ride schemes such as Bathgate Station, Livingston Station. So what happens is people will drive to the station, drop their car off, and then get the train or the bus, if it's a park and ride system of buses, into the city. Alright? And how that reduces, I'm going to move myself over here, how that reduces is that it encourages them to use public transport rather than a car. So they drive part of the way, they park for free, so it doesn't cost them anything to park. It costs money in the city, so people don't want to park in the city, it costs money. And then they get the train right into the city centre. So it's encouraging them, they're getting free parking and they're getting the train ride to their work or wherever they need to go. Improve public transport, so a lot of trains have Wi-Fi, they have plug sockets, much better kind of seating, everything is upgraded. And what this does is it means that people are more likely to use public transport and driving. So if you buy a season ticket, so you can buy all your train travel for a year, you get a huge discount. Or if you even buy it for a month, you get a huge discount. You can get access to Wi-Fi on trains now, so you can do your work while you're travelling, or browse social media, or do anything you need to do to relax, rather than be stuck in traffic and getting yourself caught in a bit of road rage. And subways are underground, and they come very, very, very frequently. So actually, you don't need to be standing waiting for long, particularly in cold winter nights. They extended another motorway, which is the M74, and that actually goes round the outside of Glasgow, making it much faster to get to other parts of Glasgow rather than going through it. So it eases congestion on the M8 because you no longer have to use M8. You can jump off onto the M74 and you can come another way into the city. So having these 2 motorways means that the traffic is split. Some using the M8 and some using the M74, depending on where they need to go. Now in Glasgow has a lot of bus lanes and kind of lanes and cycle lanes only, so that cars are not allowed in them. Now that makes it easier for buses to travel around the city, which means if you want to get somewhere, you can use public transport because you get there much quicker, particularly in the city centre. Rather than taking your car and having to go the long way round, if you jump on the bus, you can take these bus-only roads and be at your destination much quicker. Now, a lot of cities have adopted the one-way system, and the one-way system means that traffic flows much easier. So because the system or the street pattern was not designed for cars, unlike places like Livingston, which is a bit newer, the gridiron street pattern was not designed for cars. Now, if you've got cars coming along that way constantly and you want to turn and go the opposite way, it's really difficult because you've got to drive through the traffic and onto the road. Hopefully you can see my hand movements here. But if you're kind of want to go with the flow of traffic, you just need to find a gap big enough so you can go with the flow of traffic that way. So if traffic's coming this way, rather than go across in that way, you can just flow down that way. And that means it's much easier for you to get into traffic and you're not causing a traffic jam behind you. So multi-storey car parks. Now, how does this reduce traffic? Because obviously you need to drive to the multi-storey car park. Now, actually it's beneficial because it allows more cars to be parked in Glasgow and they don't have to park on the road. Because if they're already narrow roads and you park on the side of them, you're making it even narrower, causing more traffic congestion. So these car parks were built so that more cars could park there without blocking the roads off. And actually building on this, it's actually expensive to park your car in Glasgow for a full day, again encouraging people to use public transport or the park and ride system. Huge areas of Glasgow are also pedestrianised. And what that means is there's no cars allowed. So you're encouraged, if you want to come to this part of the city, you need to park your car and walk, but it might be much easier using the train. It means that it also allows pedestrians to feel safe, so they're more likely to visit the city. And it also means cars don't have to constantly stop at crossings and let people cross, so the traffic can keep flowing much quicker and much easier. And then we've got the Clyde Tunnel and Erskine Bridge. So the Clyde Tunnel goes under the River Clyde, and the Erskine Bridge goes over the River Erskine. So cars can cross the River Clyde at a different point. They don't have to go over the small bridges anymore. They can actually go under the tunnel, so it gives a different viewpoint, keeping traffic moving. Now, there is some crazy ideas in these videos. I'm not going to play them, but feel free to kind of watch them. This is the kind of land Airbus, and then you've got different ways of travelling potentially in the future. Who knows? Driverless cars are not that far away. People on Google are like testing driverless cars right now, which might be a great way of allowing drivers to relax on the road. So, your task now that I want you to do is I want you to try and answer these two parts of the questions. So, you've got to describe the problems of transport in an urban area within a developed country. And then you've got to explain what measures have been taken to reduce these problems. So what are the problems, and then what have been done to try and combat the problems. All of that information is contained within this lesson, so re-watch it as many times as you need to. And if you've got any questions, just post them in the conversations area and I'll get back to you. Alright, speak soon.